It's a new NBC News interview, a really striking interview with the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, gives us an in-depth look at her influence on her husband, the president. And joining me now is NBC correspondent Carol Lee and NBC's senior national political reporter Peter Nicholas, who conducted that interview with Dr. Jill Biden in the East Wing office. Mike Memoli contributing to this, of course, we should note as well, all of our teammates at the White House. Carol, let me start with you. First, I want to sort of get your take on the influence that she has, really unparalleled perhaps among first ladies. She is, as often decided or described, the decider. So pull the curtain back for us.
Yeah, look, Joe Biden's public life, his public service over decades has always been a family affair. And no one is more important in that than Jill Biden, and has been and continues to be. And her influence as First Lady plays out in a number of ways. If you look at policy and personnel, you take, for instance, the president's choice of education secretary. That came from her talking to teachers on the ground during the 2020 campaign, who said, look, it would be great to have somebody in there who actually spent time in a classroom. So
Cardona had taught, knew what it looked like.
Right. And so that happens. And as First Lady, she said that what she does that sets her apart from the president's advisors in the West Wing is she brings back, quote, stories. So she talks to people in her travels. She finds out what their needs are. She conveys that to the president. And sometimes that results in policy. Another example of that she gave was she was on Indian reservations, realized talking to parents they didn't have internet for their kids to conduct virtual schooling. She told the president that results in a policy. And she also influences his speeches, saying, you know,
at Uvalde, yep.
Yeah, saying, look, in an Oval Office meeting, saying this needs to have more emotion, more empathy, fewer numbers, things
the
like
DNC
that.
now selling T-shirts that she advised them, right, to say the number of firsts they've had.
Right.
First black vice president woman, first black Supreme Court justice woman as well. Peter, let me ask you, here's what Dr. Biden told you in part. She said, I'm really a first lady for everyone, not just Democrats. What does she view as her role as first lady, and how is that evolving?
Well, I think she wants to end some of the polarization in this country. She understands the country is deeply divided. She travels to red states and blue states. She travels as much or more than her husband. And I think she wants to disarm and diffuse some of the anger out there. I think she's given it the college try. Now, it's an open question whether she'll succeed, but that was a campaign promise of Joe Biden, was to try to unify the country to the extent possible. So she's working hard at that. And, you know, there are ups and downs. There are some tough moments where, you know, people have confronted her and told her when she's traveling, told her, you know, Joe Biden actually lost the election, Donald Trump won. People have shouted difficult, uncomfortable things like elder abuse at her, you know, saying that Joe Biden, you know, telling her husband is old and unfit. But she continues to try, and she doesn't seem to be giving up, and she takes that very seriously. She told us during the interview that so does her husband. They want to unify the country.
Yeah, and we know in the past there's always been these famous sort of family sit-downs, right, where they make these big decisions together. Perhaps one of the biggest headlines of this is what Jill Biden, the decider, again, as we say, told you about the thinking the Biden family has, she and her husband have right now, as it relates to 2024. What did she say?
She said that she made this argument for a second term, saying that nobody knows government better than her husband. And then what was even more significant, Peter, is that a senior aide to the First Lady told us that not only is the First Lady, but the Biden family fully supports his running in 2024.
Which is notable because I think the thinking had been in some conversations he had previously that maybe they'll make the decision after the midterms. But she pushed us a lot further in terms of that decision making.
She did, and you can see in her travels, and she's emphatically pushing the administration's agenda and, you know, going through the president's record. When she's out there on the trail, she travels a lot. So she appeared to the three of us as all in.
Yeah, and notably, by the way, I think as you report, she's been to like 9 states that her husband has not even been to right now, where she is a difference maker. Peter, let me ask you about another interesting takeaway. It relates to Hunter Biden, of course, right now. You asked about the possible Republican investigations into their son, Hunter, and she told you everybody and their brother has investigated Hunter. They keep at it and at it and at it. I know that Hunter is innocent. I love my son, and I will keep looking forward. That was pretty revealing, I think.
I thought so, too. And it's worth noting that we didn't mention Hunter specifically by name when we asked the question. She mentioned it. She raised it. She mentioned his name. And it shows you how protective she is of her family. And she considers herself the defender of that family. central figure emotionally in that family's life. And she told us at one point that she's more defensive and more protective of her children than she is even of the president, her husband. And that's what really upsets her the most. So she was pretty emphatic about that defending her son, Hunter, who is under federal investigation, and saying that he's innocent, weighing in to that degree. It surprised me that she was willing to talk about it with the candor that she did. And I have to say, I'm not sure the president has discussed his son's legal jeopardy in the same way the First Lady has.
Our time's limited, and I'm going to encourage people to check this out. I tweeted it, retweeted your tweet of it, as it were. What was your biggest takeaway? Just quickly, what struck you in that time you spent with her?
I think it was the 2024 question and how much, because she's been a reluctant political spouse early on. She has not supported every time the president, Joe Biden, wanted to run for presidency, and she just seems to be really enjoying the job and determined to get him elected for a second term.
Even expressed some frustration with some of the aides, right? When the 2-hour news conference went on and on, that was another time where she got involved.
Yes, and she didn't like it.
Yeah.
She wanted it to end earlier than 2 hours.
It's a great read and a great conversation with someone who is an influencer who we really don't hear from very often. So Peter and Carol and Mike, thank the three of you for your reporting there.